All right, we are here live on week two of CFB Graph's quick hits. Jamie Plunkett is with me. Jamie, how's it going, man?
Good, man. Just somewhere in America.
I love that. Aren't we all? Some say life is just somewhere in America. For the people who are here, Jamie, I'm gonna tweet this link out because I wasn't prepared real quick and get folks in here. Why don't you tell the folks who are already here kind of what's going on, what we're hoping to do with this summer, this season.
Yeah, we're here every single week making some picks, talking about a few games, looking at the advanced stats that you put together every week, your wonderful work that you do with CFB Graphs, now in partner with College Insider. We're going to be asking some big questions about some of these matchups and kind of just taking a look at who we like and kind of putting some pen to paper on who we like each week.
Exactly, and again, full disclosure: neither you nor I are putting action on these games, and these are just a way to talk about the games and have some fun, kind of with a record and with again paper trades and kind of understanding. Hey, let's test out models according to the spread, yeah. So what last week? Looking at some of those, I think I went 2-1 with went head to head with you on Penn State, and you. Gary Green let us all down a little bit last weekend there. And then I think you were 1-2, correct, with the TC Stanford under hitting, which is interesting because at some places that went to 58 and that would have not hit. So
Correct.
that last field goal there was very interesting overall. But yeah, we're going to try to talk about 6 games and have some thoughts here. I'll go ahead and pull up the new and improved CFB graphs, even new and improved from last week, Jamie, as we're improving. Look at that color scheme, and we'll talk about a few games. So let's start out with maybe arguably probably the biggest game of the weekend. Texas goes up to Michigan. I've got this as Texas by about 2.5. Preseason prior is doing a lot of driving here. Jamie, I want to get your opinions. My first question is there any reason that Texas isn't just going to run over Michigan this weekend?
Look, that's kind of where I'm at with this. I understand Michigan is the defending national champ, but as you reminded folks on social media this week, Nick Saban has kind of broken people's brains when it comes to how good a team can be consistently. The reality is that most schools, and that includes Michigan, still go through recruiting cycles, which means they go through ups and downs. And I do think that this is kind of a down year for Michigan from a talent perspective with everything that they lost. I don't know what their quarterback situation is, frankly, at this point. I like Texas's wide receivers. I like Quinn Ewers a lot. And I think if I'm looking at this game, my big question is, can Michigan keep up with Texas? And I think the answer is no. I like Texas in this one. And frankly, even though it's in the big house, I kind of like Texas going away.
Yeah, I definitely get that, especially if Michigan can't score like we thought. Obviously, Will Campbell, a great defensive back, would advise other college programs to avoid doing what Fresno State did. Don't throw the ball to a streaking Will Campbell running right towards your end zone pre-snap. You should probably call an audible there. Overall, I do like Texas's multiplicity on offense. You got Bond and Golden, a really good duo there, and Blue looked great. He wasn't supposed to be the starter, and filling in for injuries, looked really productive also in the pass game. So I like Texas's multiplicity. Feels pretty good. I'm also going to ride with Texas here, betting against going against my numbers here, but I do think that Texas is going to outclass Michigan. Let's go to another big game. Iowa State demonstrating the functionality here on CFB Graphs. .com, powered by College Football Insiders, or however we're saying that. Jamie, I will say before we get into this one, a couple folks watching in the stream got the comments live right here. So if you've got a question for us or want to hit, whichever game you want us to hit, please hop in and we're happy to talk about one. We've got 6 we're going to go to and get through those real quick. All right, another battle here, Jamie. A game that happens every year. A game that seems like only 2 things can happen. Iowa can win by a lot, or Iowa can win by a little. How do you see this one breaking out?
Shout out to Matt Campbell for being the most beloved coach to go 1-6 in his first 7 years against a rival. I don't understand it, and I don't think I'll ever understand it. My question in this game is, do I trust a team that's so beat up so early in the year? And with Iowa State, Abu Sama got banged up against North Dakota. They lost a couple linebackers, North Dakota. I think there were a couple offensive linemen who didn't even play in that game as they try to get healthy for this game. That's just not a really good situation to be in at this point in the year if you're Iowa State, going into Iowa City playing against Kinnick, against an Iowa team that put up some numbers. Yes, against an FCS school, but they did throw it around a little bit. I like Iowa in this game because of history and just because of what I saw from both of these teams in week one.
I do think that Bacon being out for Iowa State is going to be a big deal. But I will say I don't believe anything about Iowa's offense. I think that I'm of the opinion that last week, Iowa State's game was not as bad as it looked, and Iowa's game was nowhere near as good as it looked. In the first half, they scored less than a point per drive against an FCS opponent. And in the second half, they scored, 5.6 points per drive or something absurd there as they're putting up points. And Jamie, I went through and I looked at, run pass percentage, gap zone scheme percentage, distribution of targets. Nothing really changed offense defense wise, like in the first half to the second half for Iowa there. It was just like depth, and they got a couple big runs away through the secondary that really changed things there. So I'm not buying in on the Iowa offense. I am buying in on the Iowa State offense. I do think Rocco Becht is legitimately good and underrated. I think that the kind of trio of Sama, Noel, and Higgins is really, really great. Higgins is a true number one. Noel, as we've seen him get closer to the ball, moving in from outside his first year to more slot, to more backfield and slot this year. I think that he is just better and better as they learn how to use him more. So I actually believe in this Iowa State offense a little bit more than I have historically here, even with the loss of Shieldhouse. So provided that they are healthy on the offensive line and those guys do play, I think Iowa State could keep this one close. So I'm actually inclined to go with the underdog here.
That's fair. I think one thing we can all agree on, though, is that there won't be a ton of points. I don't think this game has hit 40 in its last 5 or 6 matchups. From a points total perspective, I see that that's 45 there on your projection.
Yeah. Feels like too much.
It feels like a lot. It feels like a lot, even with what you're talking about as far as Iowa State's offense goes. And like you said, the injuries there. I mean, I don't know what I don't know about this Iowa State front yet, and that gives me pause.
Extremely, extremely fair. We'll look to see that Iowa State EPA per rush be a little bit higher. Notice they were 75th last year, even as Sama was very explosive in Iowa's defense, 15th in the nation. Pointing out some of the colors and the stats here. Another big one for a week that feels like it's a little bit slept on, Jamie. We've got another great one, neutral site game. I do believe this is going to show us if this game was at NC State. Getting my developer, Twitterless Nick, to work on a neutral site filter here. But so this is going to be a little bit more skewed towards North Carolina State than it would be otherwise. So looking at this, Tennessee last season, 18th in EPA per play margin, 21st on offense, 15th on defense. NC State could not get it done on offense, 78th overall, 19th on defense, and a great defense overall. Jamie, what I say about NC State is when I want to know how good another team's offense is, I go find their game against NC State, and that's the one I watch. And I think that's held true. What are you buying? What are you selling in this game?
First of all, I know that everybody here takes games against an FCS opponent with a grain of salt. That being said, what I saw from Nico in this Tennessee offense in week one against Chattanooga was still really impressive. I thought he got the ball out on time. I thought he was incredibly accurate. He made every throw he was asked to make. And I thought that Tennessee ran their offense in a way that continues this trend of the Vols having maybe not quarterback you, but fun quarterback you. And I'm looking forward to seeing that continue in this game against NC State. I really like this offense. My question is, can NC State keep up? And I think the answer is no. I'm not sure that despite having a really good defense, and I think they will give Tennessee some problems, I don't think they have enough juice offensively to keep up with what Tennessee is going to be able to do in this game. So give me the Vols.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense, especially when you look at, Tennessee's defense has taken strides under Heupel. They're going to have an elite pass rush with James Pierce Jr. That secondary is the concern, but even NC State's leading receiver, Conception is a slot guy and maybe a little bit more shifty, not a true one-on-one guy. So until, if NC State can develop that threat, awesome. But one thing I'll watch in this too with Tennessee and with Nico, I do think that we'll see a lot more of the pass interference balls, the traditional Heupel. It's going to be a touchdown or it's going to be pass interference that we have not seen in the past. Pass rush on both sides of the ball is going to be so immensely important for both teams in this game. I actually am believing a little bit in McCall and being able to develop that repertoire with Concepcion. I think we might get pointsy here. I think that we're going to see a point total higher than what the market's got out there, and that we'll see some scoring on both sides. We'll see a fast-paced game. So kind of weird for an NC State game, but they're going to have to play offense if they want to keep up with Tennessee, and they're going to have to let McCall let it rip. So I'd be more inclined towards an over here.
I think that's fair. But also what NC State showed me against Western Carolina was, I don't know if that's week one jitters. I don't know if that's, inconsistency. I just, as much as I was pleased with Tennessee in their FCS game, I was displeased with NC State in their FCS game. And again, it's just one data point. It's really, really early in the year. I know that both of these teams are going to be more up for this matchup than they were for their week one matchup. I think there are going to be some points, but I just don't think NC State has the juice to keep up.
Yep, totally makes sense there. All right, we'll keep it moving here. Let's go to again another solid matchup this weekend. We are truly blessed. We've got Boise State fresh off a big shootout win against Georgia Southern there, and Oregon coming off one of the weirder games I think we're going to see this season. A game where if you just showed me the blind play-by-play stats, I thought they would have walked away with a 40-10 win or something. And buddy, they were sweating a good amount against the Idaho Vandals last week. What are you thinking about this game?
My question in this game is Oregon going to continue to try and make Dillon Gabriel Bo Nix 2.0? Dillon Gabriel has a great arm. He's a very capable quarterback. If he's got time in the pocket, he can make deep throws. He's got great accuracy. But against Idaho, I think one of the things that really took me by surprise was Oregon wanted him to get the ball out fast. There were a lot of quick passes out into the flat, a lot of short routes. And that's just not, I think, consistent with Dillon Gabriel's skill set. And I think that caused some challenges for this Oregon offense throughout the game at times. If they continue to try and do that, I don't think it'll bite them in the backside against Boise State necessarily, but that will give them some struggles, I think, down the road in their schedule. Do they get away from that? Do they start to customize this offense more towards Dillon Gabriel's strengths, or do they continue to try and force that up-tempo, quick pass kind of offense? That's something that I'm really looking forward to seeing in this game. I like Oregon generally. I don't know if I like them by 24, but I do think that they come away with the win. On the other side of things, can Boise State continue to run the ball? They're not going to run for 6 touchdowns, I don't think. But if they can continue to run the ball, control the tempo, they might have a chance to keep this one close.
All offseason, Jamie, my concern with Boise State and Ashton Jeanty specifically is what are they going to do with more focused attention on him? And the Georgia Southern game bore out some of those concerns. Ashton Jeanty was the running back who was returning this year, who had the highest yards per route run, outpaced everybody else at the running back position. Last week, he only had 4 targets and 3 catches for 4 yards, completely a non-factor in the pass game. And his run game, if you look at it, he had 14 missed tackles and the vast majority of his yards after contact. I don't know how sustainable that is against Oregon. So I was actually kind of underwhelmed with that offense relative to expectations, and the fact that Jeanty could not, develop anything in the pass game with Maddox there in the backfield. So a little bit worrying for me, kind of in the foundations. And so I'm not as in love with Boise as a dog here. We also know how important a bounce back for Oregon would be in the national scheme of things. Given the odds, Oregon is playing for a national title. They are. Oregon is playing for a conference championship, but the reality is it's more likely that they don't win the conference championship than it is. So they're auditioning for seeding here. I think it's big to beat a quality opponent like this and dismiss them and separate themselves in the field. So I'd have to be inclined to go with Oregon here based on the back of the situation, the bounce back, and maybe some cracks in the foundation for Boise we saw in week 1.
Yeah, that's definitely something to look at. And make no mistake about it, they might not win the Big Ten, but Oregon definitely has the top-end talent and some of the depth to compete for a national championship. If they can land that 5 to 6 seed range, make a nice run into the semifinals, they've got as good a chance as anybody, I think, to win the title this year.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to hit, what is this, 2 more games? We're cooking. We're cruising, man. This is great. We're going to hit another big one. Colorado stays off North Dakota State, heads to Nebraska. Some people call North Dakota South. Right up there, and they're going to face Lincoln, Dylan Raiola, and this high-flying Husker offense. Nebraska was 88th in EPA per play on offense last year. I'm going to guess that they're not going to be 88th in the EPA again this year, Jamie. Negative 29 expected points added on the season in the pass game from Nebraska. All they need is a normal quarterback. All they need is to take out that negative tail. A super disruptive defense, 43rd overall. Colorado on the other side, bringing in one of the worst defenses in the Power Five, and an offense that struggled at times last season, looked about 30th, and frankly looked good last week, but was pressured a quarter of the time against an FCS defense. And a lot of those big play touchdowns were just Travis Hunter being wide open against dudes who couldn't cover him. Like just FCS guys can't cover him. I don't think we need to apologize for saying that. So what's your read on this game? Which way is this one going?
I mean, don't forget about Jimmy Horn in that wide receiver room too.
Shifty and underrated.
Like,
you lose track of Jimmy Horn, you're gonna have a bad day. TCU 2022. Yeah.
Shout out, right? Look,
2023. Sorry.
I really, really like Colorado's wide receiver room, and I do, for all the pomp and circumstance around Colorado off the field, I think Shedeur Sanders is one of the best quarterbacks in college football. And what he showed me against North Dakota State was a willingness to stand in the pocket even when it was crumbling around him, make the difficult throws over the middle of the field, and he did so with really good accuracy for the majority of the day. That was North Dakota State. And like you said, Nebraska is going to be a whole different animal on this defensive front. Lincoln is going to be absolutely rocking for this football game, and I'm not sure the offensive line can hold up, and I know the defense isn't going to hold up. So this is year 2 Matt Rule, prime opportunity for Nebraska to get a good big win here early in the season, and I think they do come away with that. I think I don't know what the Vegas line is here. Again, we're just kind of using that as a barometer for where these teams kind of line up. I think Nebraska wins this one. I think they win it going away.
Love that. I have to agree. If I'm going to have any kind of opinion on here, I think you've got to go Nebraska. Nebraska top 10 in defensive explosives allowed, both in the run and the pass last season. They had a bunch of 1-score games, and a lot of that was just they didn't have the offense to do anything. Jamie, I'll call our attention to their offense on early downs was 122nd in EPA per play. And their rushing game was super bad, 76th overall. So even when they got in those 3rd and 4th down short situations, they had to rush because they didn't have an ability to pass at all, and they couldn't do that efficiently. So I think even if Raiola makes those normal basic mistakes, gives them such a higher floor that I don't think they're going to have the same game. Also, maybe a little bit of a punching back situation with how Colorado kind of let it go in the second half last year as well. Some respect points for Matt Rule. Hard to disagree with Nebraska being the right side in this one. I'm reluctant for any kind of, I think people see this one and think that it's going to get pointy because of Nebraska's ability to kind of cut off the explosive play, as I mentioned before. I'm less inclined to believe that this is going to be super high scoring. And I think the market's a little high on the point total as well. So that one's one I have circled, although I definitely think that the right play here is Nebraska as a side.
Fully agree.
Let's do a quick look into the comments. We've got who invited sailors into the comments here? But he says that he believes Nebraska covers. I think we're all in agreement there. All right, let's go ahead and get to our last game. Jamie, I'm going to declare this live on air. We need a random Texas game of the week segment, and I think that I don't even need to pitch that to you. I think we just need to do it. That's going to be UTSA and Texas State this week. UTSA, let's type that in. Again, the beautiful functionality of College Football Insider / CFB Graphs 2.0 here, and the updated nice design that I don't know if you noticed changed on air the conference and the record from the beginning of the show. Developer Nick, Twitterless developer Nick, is making some moves during the show. UTSA, Texas State, big kind of questions for both teams in terms of, can you continue the regime with a new quarterback? What does that look like with some turnover here? You got Jordan McLeod for Texas State and Owen McCown for UTSA, losing Frank Harris there, who's been there for a long time, and a couple other key players. Where are you landing on this game, Jamie?
This is one where I actually did spend a lot of time watching their week 1 matchups. UTSA surprised me a little bit with how much they struggled to put Kennesaw State away. That one never really got out of reach for the Owls, which I thought was a little bit interesting. Like you said, some transition with the offensive pieces there. There's going to be a little bit of growing pains for sure. Meanwhile, Texas State built a really nice early lead against Lamar, and then I think they maybe pulled the ones a little too early and let Lamar crawl back into that one to make that final score look a lot closer than the football game actually was. So for me, I like Texas State. I like them that they're at home, and they're not going to pull the starters early in this one. I think they're going to have a little bit more of a consistent and efficient offense, and so I like the Bobcats.
Yeah, I like that too. I think the big thing I'm looking for here is, it's kind of worst on worst with the Texas State defense and the UTSA offense. And I'm looking for how they're going to attack and kind of disrupt McCown, who is a very different player than Frank Harris. Lastly, I'll note I don't expect UTSA to be an average kind of balanced run pass team. I do expect them to rush a little bit more. And not, drop back and scramble with some of that ability lost. So pace is really, really interesting here for me. I do have Texas State slightly favored at home. This is basically a toss up on a neutral field, slightly favoring Texas State. So I think that's the right side. One that I'm definitely interested in, mostly for how UTSA looks stylistically as they try to sneak into an American Athletic Conference that is not super top heavy. And I think that they could, compete in if they can find the right identity. We've got another comment here. Let's check in before we sign off. I can't get my mouse. There it is. Yeah, good call from Sailors chiming in as well. It's going to be fun to watch. I think this is a good one. This is good Texas football. We'll keep talking about it the entire season. Jamie, another successful Thursday quick hit. Shout out to you grinding, being in your car, running errands and getting it done. We'll be back next week to talk about a few more games. Until then, catch us on Twitter. I'm at Stats Award. Jamie Plunkett is at Frog Preacher, and we'll see you again soon.